for planning purposes, for understanding where wetlands are, where agricultural lands are. Having the ability to generate maps like this is very useful. And again, being able to generate something like this on a much more frequent basis. These types of maps typically are generated once every 2, 3, 4, or 5 years, but being able to do this once every few years is quite useful. Our screen just, there we go, we're back. We're back here. We're over here now. There we go. So, yeah, did you have to say, I'm going to pull up some recent images here.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So we kind of showed you a few examples of things that we think are important and meaningful, in the Thai context. But both MapPoint Asia and Planet Labs really kind of want to hear from you guys. Like, do you think this would be useful? If so, what problems would you try and address with this data set? So I don't know if anyone in the audience is comfortable or interested in talking about a problem they have that they think this might help with. If so, please let us know, and we would love to discuss it with you.
Maybe something that will stimulate some ideas in the audience. It's one thing for us to show you slides of information that's been collected or images that have been collected within the last week or within the last few months. But this communicates exactly what we're doing. So I woke up this morning a little bit early to check our data archive to see what sort of imagery we collected yesterday from Thailand. And you see this strip of images here. There's actually a preview here on the right. As the atmosphere or the region is pretty smoky, that's very much reflected in the imagery that we've collected. A lot of haze in the area right now. But this group of images was captured yesterday at about 10:30 in the morning. It was captured with one of our test satellites. But I think the interesting thing is not only did we capture the image yesterday morning, we were able to downlink it to one of our several ground stations around the world. That imagery has now been orthorectified. So once we downlink the data to a ground station, we actually have a highly automated process in place that turns that into geographic or geospatial information. So I'm not just looking at this image and saying, well, that's interesting, what's going on here. I can actually put this, and this is our own GIS in a browser. Again, you see this is a commercial base map that is pretty outdated, and it's got a lot of clouds in it. You see here the image that we captured yesterday morning is clear, a little bit of smoke in the air, but again, comparing to what's available today in a commercial sense and what we were able to capture just yesterday is quite useful. And again, so this information that's contained in here is only a few hours old. A little bit more than 24 hours old, but it's already accessible, and it's not just accessible to me. Our partners at MapPoint Asia have the same access to this data as we do, so they can get new data of Thailand every single day through our system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just to follow up on that, rectifying these images, and by that I mean placing them on the Earth's surface, is actually a significant challenge, especially when you're talking about the volume of imagery that we are producing. So to cope with that, we have had to leverage cloud compute infrastructure and some very advanced algorithmic computational methods that looks at each picture as it comes down off the satellite, extracts a number of points it thinks are meaningful, like thinks it can see something, and then it literally compares that to about 100 square mile area until it snaps it into the right position. So we can do that in minutes, where traditionally that has taken a very long time to accomplish. So even just behind simple tools like the ones we're demonstrating to you relies, there's a huge amount of technological progress that's gone into making those possible.
Yeah, and even in regions where we don't necessarily think that there is a lot of change, let me just show you by comparison. So I have a link here to Google Maps that's going to take me to the same area. You can see that this was obviously taken at a different time of year. Just comparing the two images, we're in a little bit of a drier season, so a lot of the vegetation is a bit drier than what you see here. We don't know the date of this image, So if I'm just looking using Google Maps as my data source, actually I'm not getting timely information. I don't know when this data was collected. If I just compare the two quickly, we look at this small reservoir here and this region near the reservoir. Just for comparison's sake, we see that there has obviously been activity here. So vegetation has been removed from this side of the reservoir, and again, being able to understand what is going on where is very useful. To be honest, the spatial resolution of this image is higher than 3 meters. It's probably closer to 1 meter, but the temporal information, so the currency of the data that we can get from the Planet Labs data set that we're building, that's where the value is. That is having the ability to get the most current information possible. And like I said, this information that we've got here, about 24 hours old. So I wanted to, before we finish with a couple of other topics, I'm just going into our data that's been collected within the region here. And I'd like to encourage anyone who has a particular area of interest or a particular application, first of all, we can see if we have data here. Secondly, we can see how current it is and if there is information contained in there that may actually be of interest to you. So this is live data that's been collected over the last few months. You see we don't have data for every location in Thailand, but we have actually a significant amount of data that's come online the last couple of months. So does anyone have a region of interest? I'm willing to take requests at this point.
Nobody?
I might lean on our partners from MapPoint Asia to point me somewhere. Oh, do we need a microphone?
มีท่านใดมีคำถามไหมคะ
Yes.
Can I give a request?
Please drive, yes. Where are we going?
The Mekong Delta.
Okay. That is?
That is it's south of Ho Chi Minh City.
South of Ho Chi Minh, okay.
So that very tip. So what I'm interested in is looking at coastal erosion processes.
Yeah. My internet connection is just a little bit low. I'm assuming perhaps this region right here is part of the delta. Are we seeing that? Yeah. Let's pull this region up here. So this is the other interesting thing is each of these scenes that is coming up is about 100 square kilometers worth of data. And so we're not just stitching things together. We're actually, as Alex described, we're taking the best pixel. So you see in this region, there's some overlap from different times. If I just have a sense of what I'm looking at here, this image was captured on the 21st of February. So let's have a look at it here. This gives me a sense of some of what we call metadata. So as this scene is coming up, I can quickly understand some information about it. We have some estimates around cloud cover. We have the time of day that the data was collected on. It was acquired on the 21st of February. It was downlinked just a few hours later on the same day, and then we have what the sun altitude was. If the satellite was collecting at nadir, it was essentially very close to nadir, and those sorts of things. And then we have the camera settings that enable us to, again, improve the collection. So this was collected quite recently with some of our optimized camera settings. Let me put it into. And again, I think just showing this map behind us is a commercial base map comprised of satellite imagery that's anywhere from 1 to 2 years old all the way to 7 or 8 years old. So there's no vintage, if you will, on this data that I have behind. But being able to see, if we can assess different changes, obviously there seems to be a decent amount of sediment in this region. The water's pretty brown. If I'm comparing that